Okay, everyone, part two. Sorry about that. I had to stop recording, speak with the little ones, and now we're back. Okay, so we're going to kind of transition. I do want to go over some things. Some things happen. Miss Calloway has a really honest conversation with Bud where he really starts to understand that, they want him to stay with them. She knows how happy he is to be there with him, and um, she has this great conversation with him. Miss Thomas says, before that grin gets stuck on your face, let me tell you, you're going to have lots of chores and things to take care of around here. Bud, you'll be expected to pull your own weight the best you can. We all like a very clean house, and none of us are too used to having children around. So we're all going to have to learn to be patient with each other. There's one person in particular that you're going to have to be very patient with. Do you know who I mean? I sure did. Yes, ma'am. It's Mr. Calloway. She said, good boy. Give him some time. He really needs help with a lot of different things. He swears someone's adding weight into that bass fiddle of his every year, but he's just getting older. He can use some young, wiry hands to help him around. Think you can handle that? Now I knew for sure she'd looked at my legs. She must have thought I was a real weakling. I said, yes, ma'am, my legs are a lot stronger than they look. Most folks are surprised by that. Miss Thomas said, I don't doubt that at all, Bud. I'm not worried about your body being strong. I'm more concerned about your spirit. Lord knows Mr. Calloway is going to give it a test. I said, yes, ma'am. My spirit's a lot stronger than it looks, too. Most folks are really surprised by that. She smiled and said, very good. But you know what, Bud? What, ma'am? I knew you were an old toughie the minute I saw you. I smiled again. She said, our schedule's pretty heavy for the next couple of months, and then come September, we'll have to see about school for you. But we'll be doing a lot of traveling right around Michigan, so I hope you don't mind long car trips. No, ma'am. She said, that's great, Bud. Something tells me you were a godsend to us. You keep that in mind all the time, okay? Yes, ma'am. Then she did something that made me feel strange. She stood up, grabbed both my arms, and looked right hard in my face, just like Mama used to. She said, really, Bud, I want you to always keep that in mind. This might get hard for you some of the time, and I don't always travel with the band, so I don't want you to forget what I'm telling you. I said, no, ma'am, I won't. This exchange between Miss Thomas and Bud really is one of the big transitions. I think into Bud knowing that this is where he's supposed to be. Okay, this conversation, the way that Miss Thomas talks to him, the way that she grabs his arms, not mean, but like lovingly almost. She really wants him to understand what she is saying. He says it's like Mama used to. She's going to replace this mother figure in his life. And so this is one of the big events that kind of signals that change for Bud, knowing he's going to be okay. Now, as we move on, though, there's some experiences and events with the band that really help Bud adapt to being at Grand Calloway Place. So, if you remember from your reading, Bud was given something. Okay, so I'm not gonna read each page here, but we're gonna take some more notes. So I have another graphic organizer here, and so I'm actually going to use this graphic organizer for two different events that occurred. So the first event that happened was Bud gets a recorder, and this event is really one of the first events where the band is making him feel like a part of them, right? And so we're going to explore how some different characters feel during this event, because part of our comprehension skill is being able to compare and contrast and think about how different people feel. So I kind of just split my graphic organizer in half. And so this first part is Bud gets a recorder. And the first character I want to think about is Bud himself. How does Bud feel? So we know that Bud was super excited. So Bud is excited. But even more than that, he was grateful. Bud is excited and grateful. And you know what? This is hard for me, so I'm going to move my book. Okay, so Bud is excited and grateful. And then, you know, what helps him again is what all these other characters say to him. So we know that Steady Eddie, I just love their names. Steady Eddie tells Bud about practice. So you wouldn't tell someone about practice unless you wanted them there, right? Okay, we know that the thug wants to give Bud a name. And so, you know, that's a big one right there. Okay, the thug wants to give Bud a name. Okay, and how does Miss Thomas feel about all this? She's not even interested. If I'm remembering correctly, she leaves the room. She kind of says like, oh, I'm not getting involved in this, because she remembers, she knows, you know, these things, especially right around here. She knows this name-giving ceremony. So Miss Thomas is not interested in any of this. But I think one of the first events that helps Bud adapt, so first event that helps Bud adapt is being given this recorder, okay, showing he's part of this group. Now, right after this part of the story is one of my favorite parts, and this is where they choose Bud's name. Okay, so that's going to be our next event. So choosing Bud's name. Now, anybody that's ever had a nickname or been given a nickname, there's usually a feeling that goes along with that. Like if you feel like you're more connected to that person or that group of people, you've been accepted. And so this, you know, this is definitely a huge turning point, a huge event where the band is going out of their way. You know, they want to do this, but this is a huge event in this story for Bud where he can really feel like part of something bigger. He's not alone anymore. Okay, he has a family. So this is going to be our second event that helps Bud adapt. Okay, so let's go through, how does everybody feel when they are choosing Bud's name? So this, oh gosh, this part. Okay, I'm going to go through. Let's talk about these characters. So we have Mr. Jimmy. Okay, Mr. Jimmy does not want to call him Waterworks Willie. Or call him not Waterworks Willie. Okay, and Doodoo Bug wants to call him the Bone. Thug wants to call him La Bone. And then Steady Eddie wants to call him Sleepy La Bone. And as you remember, Sleepy La Bone ends up being Bud's name. Okay, so when we're comparing and contrasting characters, sometimes it's about feelings, how people feel. Sometimes it's about what they do. Sometimes it's about what they say. Okay, so again, I'm really wanting us to understand, how did the band help Bud adapt? And they made him feel like a part of the band. Steady Eddie gave him a recorder. They gave Bud a nickname. Okay, so those two things are really big events that helped him adapt, that helped bring about this change of Bud at the beginning of the story to the end of the story. Okay, so there will be a next video that's going to be using some of this information from our discussion. Okay, but I'm going to tie it to the writing prompt. So at the end of this story, could we write something about Bud? How is he at the end of this story? Bud is happy to be part of the band and to have a home. Okay, so if you remember at the beginning of the story, here he is. He's exhausted, he's tired, he's a little unsure. Okay, now Bud at the end still thoughtful and caring. I would say he's still relieved in a sense. But he's no longer sad, scared. He's no longer an orphan. He has a family. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this story. It's one of my favorites, and I love that it's written by the same author that wrote The Watsons Go to Birmingham. Send me any questions if you have questions regarding our discussion. Thank you.